Welcome to PreciousMetalsInvesting.com. My name is Ted Sudol, and I have the pleasure of having as my guest today Paul Majenovic. Paul is the author of High Level Investing for Dummies. Welcome, Paul.
Good to be back on the program, Ted. And you know something, you and I have been observers of the precious metal scene for years, and one of the things that was always a cause of either joy or consternation was how well silver was performing, or, you know, the other side of it too is how the kind of difficulties that sometimes arose, because whenever there was a large short position in the COMEX markets, that it was always preceding what was like a sharp correction in silver.
Right, and it just seemed that the story for silver was just so compelling, you know, increasing industrial demand, decreasing above ground supplies, some of the producers not producing because of the economic conditions, and those of us who were interested in precious metals were saying, what's going on here?
Yeah, well, you know what's interesting, I guess the activities in the COMEX market was always, we bear to reason that it was always a short-term machination. We know that the long-term price of silver went from, back when I first started with it was like $4 an ounce.
Right.
It zigzagged up to 50, then had that crash in 2011, and it zigzagged back to what it is now. Here was the first week of May 2016, and it's a you know, a little bit over 17. So still not a bad move for that time frame, but I know that there's more coming into it. So, but for now, what a lot of observers are watching in terms of this titanic balance, it seems like. On the one hand, they say it's like a short position on the COMEX for silver that is like at high levels, near historic levels, and in recent years, that was always a prelude to, again, a sharp correction. But on the other, and some commentators are definitely making a big point of that, so they say be very cautious. On the other side, you have commentators who see a sea change in how the structure of the market goes. And I think, I know that Andrew Maguire was interviewed very recently, and he makes the case that it's changed because, first of all, the center of gravity, so to speak, for the silver market has in recent years been shifting over to the east, with the bullion exchanges, you know, such as the Shanghai exchange, and that you know is actually the precursor to probably a very bullish move. So either a major bearish issue or a major bullish move. So we don't know how it's going to pan out, but it is a different trading market than I ever recall trading. So, but fortunately, one of the things I mentioned, for those who were bearish, they said that if the shorts try to push silver down and they fail, and silver doesn't respond the way they like, then the bearish would see that as a great prelude where you can see silver potentially melting up, as one commentator mentioned. So for me, again, for those people out there who are buying the physical bullion, you know, anything that happens in the next few weeks, fine, use it as a buying opportunity, because the fundamentals you mentioned earlier, I think, just get better and better as each year passes, especially since, maybe, how do I put this? Almost like in an inverse way. It's not that the silver market is so, in some ways, so spectacular, or gold, but because the rest of the world is deteriorating and making it look that much better. But one is getting great, and the other one is not getting great. So I think from all the pluses and minuses, I think it's cause for be long-term very bullish on both gold and silver.
And as you pointed out, you know, the center of gravity is changing, and in the past, the shorts, you know, J.P. Morgan could and others could dump a big ton of paper silver on the market. It would push the price down. The momentum in the downward direction would allow them to buy at a cheap price, and then
exactly, and then you see silver languishing at much lower levels. But the interesting thing is that if people saw the action in late April, there was an attempt to do that. There was a day when, in a 10-minute span, and I saw the record there. I think you know, others have commented more, you know, with greater detail about this. But something like in a span of 10 minutes, $2 billion worth of gold futures contracts were sold, and $1.5 billion of silver. I might be off 100 million or two, but still a huge amount in 10 minutes. And yes, silver had sharply fell that day, but it stabilized and moved up, which is, again, peculiar when you compare it to what's happened in the last, say, 4 or 5 years.
Well, it's peculiar until you look at the article which says that the Shanghai exchange tripled their supply of silver. So basically, in the past, when J.P. Morgan pushed the price down. They could manipulate the price, or others could manipulate the price down. And now the Shanghai Exchange, when they see the price down, is just saying, this is a fire sale. We got to buy a lot of this stuff while it's cheap.
Exactly. And you know what, Ted? The data corroborates your observation there, because they said in recent weeks the amount of silver stockpiled at the COMEX and I think the LBMA has shrunk drastically. Meanwhile, the stock of silver, the physical silver for the Shanghai Exchange, has gone up by a roughly corresponding amount. So this is I love the way this plot is getting thicker. I'm looking forward to see how this unfolds in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, as you said, it'll be extremely interesting. You know, and when you tag on with that, the fact that Deuche Bank agreed that there was some manipulation going on.
Yeah, that's another wrinkle. That where were they a few years ago? I thought
it seems like the end game for the silver shorters is here.
This year's going to be more interesting than 2011. Not that that was that interesting, but we did well in that first part. And now, I think the bullish momentum, by and large, is going to overcome anything else. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thank you, Paul, for being with us today on PreciousMetalsInvesting.com. Make sure you visit the website for these videos. If you would rather get your precious metals investing tips on the run, the Precious Metals podcast is now available on Google Play Music for Android users, and it is available on iTunes. That is the Precious Metal Investing podcast. And welcome to our guest. Thank you to our guest, Paul Majenovic. Paul has his own website, ravencapitalist.com, and is the author of a new book, High Level Investing for Dummies.
Thank you kindly, and keep on stacking your metals here, because you'll thank yourself down the road. Thanks for having me on, Ted.
Thank you.